On today's episode, I'll break down Kevin Korchinski's recent struggles and Sacha Boisvert hitting the transfer portal.
You're Locked On Blackhawks, your daily podcast on the Chicago Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
How's it going, Blackhawks fans? Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, a quick reminder to please go and hit that like button, hop in the comment section below, and to subscribe to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube, all of which, as always, is 100% free, will not cost you anything, and helps me out in a massive way in growing the show. Quick reminder as well that everything is always time-coded down in the description on every single episode, so you can jump to specifically whatever part of every single episode that you want to hear. And last but certainly not least, got to give a quick shout out to today's sponsor, which is Game Time. Make sure to go and download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKDOWNNHL in all caps for $20 off with your first purchase. All right, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, depending on when you're listening to this. Thank you, as always, for joining me on another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, your one-stop shop for all things Chicago Blackhawks. We got some beefy Blackhawks prospects updates to get into here throughout the entirety of today's episode, starting first with some interesting news coming out of the college hockey scene from this morning, as the 18th overall pick in the 2024 NHL draft, Sacha Boisvert, interestingly enough, entered the transfer portal this morning after spending his freshman season with North Dakota, who did not reach the NCAA tournament. They recently fired Brady Berry as their head coach and named Dane Jackson as the replacement. And as a result, 3 players, including Sacha Boisvert, elected to hit the transfer portal. Boisvert, 6'2", 180-pound center, tallied 32 points in 18 goals, leading the team in both of those categories as a freshman with North Dakota this past season, one of the best freshmen in the entire country, and now will be taking his talents elsewhere. And you would think, considering how strong of a first collegiate season Boisvert had, he would be one of the most sought-after players in the entire country. However, doesn't seem like he's going to be in the transfer portal for very long, as he supposedly had a do not contact label next to his name in the portal, suggesting that he already knows where he's going to be going, or at least has it finalized down to a couple of teams. And just a couple of hours ago, Blackhawks fans, Cam Robinson on X posted that he's hearing Boisvert will be the latest Blackhawks prospect to take his talents to Boston University, joining Jack Bushman, who was a third-round pick in the 2024 draft class as well, and will be a freshman with the Terriers in the fall. We've obviously seen numerous Blackhawks prospects go through the BU pipelines in the last 6 to 7 seasons, right? With Alex Vlasic, Drew Commesso, Ryan Greene as the co-captain this season, and his season still hasn't come to a close, as I'll be talking about during segment 3. But I would absolutely love this for Sacha Boisvert if it winds up being the case. Nothing seems to be finalized at this point in time. However, I don't believe someone like Cam Robinson would go as far with this reporting if he didn't feel like it was pretty set in stone. I would give it 2 thumbs up. I would love Sacha Boisvert going to join BU. I mean, they've done an incredible job. Jay Pandolfo is a phenomenal head coach. They've churned out prospects year after year after year. And despite me saying during my NCAA tournament preview that I don't think BU quite has the roster to go and make a national championship run this year, they're making me eat my words. So even with a roster that I don't think was quite at the level as to what we've seen at BU the last couple of seasons, they're still finding a way to make a run for a national championship here this year. One of the best programs in the entire country. I wonder if the Blackhawks were involved, or, I mean, should Boisvert officially sign with BU? I do wonder if they were involved in that whatsoever, because, you know, that's a pipeline obviously the Blackhawks are very familiar with. You got to think they've been very happy with what Jay Pandolfo and BU has done with their players over the last couple of seasons. You would think either there or somewhere in the Big Ten would be the most likely option for the Blackhawks if Boisvert was departing. North Dakota and the NCHC, those would be the most likely options, but I think this is a slam dunk for Sacha Boisvert. And how fun would it be to see him and Jack Pridham as underclassmen together, having a lot of fun and hopefully racking up some high point totals for the Terriers next season. Jack Pridham, too, a kid that I've talked super highly about on the show. I think was a phenomenal mid-round selection by GMKD, plays with great speed, has a dynamic offensive ability. I'm super excited to see him going to a great program like BU to continue his development path these next couple of seasons. Same with Sacha Boisvert. I think he was probably frustrated that despite leading the team in goals and points this season, they weren't able to make it to the NCAA tournament, didn't really have the best supporting cast around him. Can't really say the same about BU. Usually have one of the best rosters in all of college hockey, have a great head coach, like I mentioned, in Jay Pandolfo, who I was watching play hockey in my early days. But there was the latest we have on Sacha Boisvert hitting the transfer portal, and then only a couple of hours later, reports suggesting that he could be the latest Blackhawks prospect to join on with Boston University. Whenever that becomes finalized or wherever Boisvert officially commits to next and where he will play his sophomore season, I'll be sure to update you all on that right here on Locked On Blackhawks. That's the latest we have, though, on the 18th overall pick in the 2024 NHL draft. Sacha Boisvert surprisingly hitting the transfer portal here this morning. Coming up in just a moment, Blackhawks fans, I'll touch on Kevin Korchinski's struggles since coming back up to the NHL. First, though, I do have to talk to you all quickly about Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track, but that's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and complete control over your finances. And Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center so that you can track all your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place and stop just managing your money and start building wealth. And what I personally love about Monarch Money is that instead of juggling multiple financial apps at the same time, you can use Monarch Money to check your finances, track your spending, and even plan your long-term goals all in the same place. So go and take control of your finances right now with Monarch Money by using the code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off on your first year. Again, that's monarchmoney.com with the code LOCKEDONNHL in all caps to get 50% off on your first year with Monarch Money. Segment 2, Kevin Korchinski has been back up with the Blackhawks for the past 2 games since being recalled from the Rockford Ice Hogs for the second time this season. Got to remember, he was up for a brief 9-game stint right around the midway point of the year. But in those first 2 games back up in the NHL, we have seen some defensive struggles out of Kevin Korchinski. He had that neutral zone blunder on Friday night and then a tough sequence to give up 2 goals in 31 seconds on Sunday against the Utah Hockey Club. The first one, nothing really he could do about it as it was just a bad break, a puck from the point deflected in off his leg. The second one, though, on a goal scored by Alex Kerfoot, where Korchinski just kind of got outbodied and outsized in front of his goaltender. That's the type of stuff that is concerning to see about Kevin Korchinski. However, there are some things we got to keep in mind about this kid. But what I will say is, because we see a guy like Artem Levshinov at 19 years old who only spent, a half or 3/4 of a season down in Rockford in his first NHL stint, look so strong and confident and handling 20 minutes a game so swimmingly, in addition to Sam Rinzel having a pretty tremendous NHL debut. And then you get Ethan Del Mastro and Wyatt Kaiser really starting to come in their own on their back end. And I think that's left some Blackhawks fans wondering, well, why isn't the same happening for Kevin Korchinski? And because he's seemingly having some struggles in his development process, could that lead to him being an odd man out type of defenseman in the Blackhawks rebuild? So I wanted to share my thoughts on this matter, as there has been some Kevin Korchinski discourse going on here recently on the internet. Some people even suggesting that the Blackhawks should be looking into trading Korchinski. First thing I got to say on this matter, is pump the brakes, Blackhawks fans. It's way too early to start these conversations with Korchinski. The one thing I will say, though, and I've talked about this multiple times with the Blackhawks blue line, because the sheer number of bodies back there, you got to think there is going to be an odd man out type of defenseman. I'm not saying it is going to be Kevin Korchinski, but it does feel like it's got to be someone. But the reason why I think it's too early to go this route with KK is because he's only 20 years old and probably should be in his first professional season if he had the option, or should at least be getting his first taste of NHL action here this year, or his first serious stretch of NHL games, because had the Blackhawks had the opportunity to send him to the AHL last year and develop him down in Rockford, that's assuredly what they would have done. However, it was NHL or back to the WHL for KK, and we know the Blackhawks, for better or for worse, like to get prospects under their guidance and under their leadership as early as possible. I know that scarred some Blackhawks fans because we saw what happened with Adam Boquist. We saw what happened with Kirby Dach. But I'm here to remind you all that Kyle Davidson is not Stan Bowman. And a reminder of that is Korchinski not being thwarted into the NHL scene immediately again here this year. What did GMKD do? He's kept Kevin down in Rockford to give him some time to play in all situations, to get more comfortable playing a grown man style of game, which it is at the AHL level. That's clearly a sign that he's focused on remaining patient with a lot of these players. It's just a little bit harder to keep that in perspective when you see a young guy like Artem Levshinov go and thrive immediately. When you see a guy like Sam Rinzel have the NHL debut that he did. You got to stay patient with Kevin Korchinski, though, because the biggest thing we got to keep in mind, what he doesn't have that Artem Levshinov does, or that Ethan Del Mastro does, or that Sam Rinzel does, or that Alex Vlasic does, is the size. Kevin Korchinski is only about 6'1", probably $180, 185 pounds, maybe if we're being generous here. While the rest of the young kids, for the most part on the Blackhawks blue line, Artem Levshinov, 6'3", already well built out for a 19-year-old, looks like a grown man out there. I joked on Twitter, he somehow looks like 35 and 14 at the same point in time, but he's a big frame. Sam Rinzel, 6'4", even though I don't think he's ever going to be like someone who's throwing booming hits out there and will probably be more known for his offensive abilities than his defensive prowess. He's still got a big body. Ethan Del Mastro, he's 6'4" and well built. Alex Vlasic, 6'6", even Louis Crevier, 6'7", right? Like, these guys are more prone to handle grown man hockey because they have the bodies to hang in there. Kevin Korchinski doesn't have that luxury, unfortunately, and it's going to be a little bit more of a challenge for him to figure out how to maneuver in the defensive zone and how to battle well in front of the net and not get, completely exposed out there and lose consistent defensive board battles and whatnot. And I think those are really the areas where Korchinski has struggled the most. You see the puck moving abilities, you see the speed. I mean, I'll never forget when I watched Kevin Korchinski skate for the first time at development camp. This was prior to Oliver Moore and Sam Rinzel. But I still think Kevin Korchinski is the better skater than Sam Rinzel. I don't know if he's the faster skater than Oliver Moore, but at that time, Kevin Korchinski was the best skater I'd ever seen in person. This kid can absolutely fly, and the way that he can pirouette and spin out there, uberly talented with his skates. The one area where he really struggles is in the dirty areas, in front of his goaltender, winning one-on-one battles, clearing opposing forwards out of the crease, winning board battles. Those are the areas where Korchinski is struggling, but that really shouldn't be all that surprising for an undersized defenseman who's only 20 years old, still one of the youngest defensemen in all of hockey, and just doesn't have that much experience under his belt. You got to remain patient with a kid like KK because he doesn't have that size. And because he doesn't have that size, not all defensemen's development paths and curves are linear. You cannot point to a time when they will specifically have figured it out. Everyone is different back there. And I know we want Kevin Korchinski to be thriving right here, right now, right? Like, that's the ideal outcome. We all want that, but we can't act like him not thriving in this situation again with not a lot of support around him, right? It's a really young blue line. And as in guy who's always going to be more so offensive minded, he's probably always going to need a sturdy defensive minded defensive partner to really bring out the best in him. I fully believe that, but that's not the end of the world. The Blackhawks have those in the organization as well. It's just not paired up alongside Korchinski right now. So he really is being exposed in some situations. And I think Blackhawks fans are, unfairly critiquing him a little bit right now. And I think it's just because of what's going on with Levshinov and Rinzel. And again, Wyatt Kaiser's starting to play the best hockey of his career. And again, I think that's a perfect comparison. Wyatt Kaiser and Kevin Korchinski are really the two pieces of this blue line that don't have size, right? Like everyone else is 6'3", 6'4", and above. But what's the difference between Wyatt Kaiser and Kevin Korchinski? Kevin Korchinski is going to turn 21 years old this summer. Wyatt Kaiser is going to turn 23. Like, he's 2 years older than him, has had time to both physically mature and rack up more experience, further develop his body and get stronger being a professional hockey player compared to a junior or college hockey player. Kevin Korchinski is really early in that scene, and junior hockey is a lot different than college as well. Wyatt Kaiser had a couple of years of college to really get his body prepared for this style of hockey, and NCAA hockey is just more physical than WHL style of hockey. They're two completely different things. And again, it's taken Kaiser until this point to really put it all together and start thriving. The last 3 weeks have been the best hockey we've seen from Wyatt Kaiser. And I fully believe that's Kevin Korchinski is capable of turning into that style of player. He just needs to rack up more experience and kind of figure out how to maneuver in the defensive zone a little bit. And I do think bringing in a sturdy defensive partner alongside him would do him some wonders as well. I don't know if that's going to be happening this year or whether that's happening in the future. But the biggest thing I'm getting to, Blackhawks fans, is we just got to remain patient with Kevin Korchinski here. And while, again, this isn't like the ideal outcome, but just for the sake of conversation, even if Kevin Korchinski were to remain in Rockford for all of next year, he'd still only be 21 years old at the end of the season and would be a young 22-year-old going into the start of the 2026-27 campaign. Like, that is still insanely young. And even though, yes, he has been on the professional scene since 19, like, that's still relatively early in the development path. So I think we just got to pump the brakes a little bit on the Kevin Korchinski criticism. It is something to, pay attention to over these next few years when, again, it feels like something's got to give on this blue line. There's not enough room for all of these kids, and there might be a time where you got to trade one of them to bring in something for this forward group. We'll see what happens there, but I don't think saying trade Kevin Korchinski is a reasonable reaction, considering he's only been up for 2 games. He's still among the youngest in the NHL. He's very early in his development path, and it's a full-blown kids display on the blue line for the Blackhawks. There's not a lot of true support back there right now. So there are my thoughts on Kevin Korchinski and some of the discourse that's going on around him since being called back up to the NHL and kind of having a couple of struggling performances since. Coming up in just a minute here, Blackhawks fans, before I close out today's episode, let's dive into the Frozen Four. Real quick, though, I do got to talk to you all first about Wonderful Pistachios. Are you looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Well, then go and crack into a great source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. And Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts, with each 1 ounce serving having 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily nutritional value. Plus, they're packed with fiber to help you keep feeling fuller longer. And who doesn't love a good pistachio? I know I certainly do. I literally could sit there eating them and cracking them all day long. And whether you're running between meetings or dropping off the kids, Wonderful Pistachios are the snack that works as hard as you do. So get snacking and get cracking with a snack that packs a protein punch by checking out wonderfulpistachios.com in order to learn more. Again, that's wonderfulpistachios.com to check it out today. Back here on the Locked On Blackhawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Just want to say thank you to everyone for making Locked On Blackhawks your very first listen. Here to start off your day. For your second listen, make sure to go and check out the Locked On NHL podcast, bringing you the daily league-wide stories that matter with the local coverage you love from Locked On. Find Locked On NHL right now on YouTube or wherever you may be listening to your podcasts. Segment 3, the NCAA tournament has officially reached the Frozen Four, and we got a pair of Blackhawks prospects whose national championship aspirations are still alive in Ryan Greene with BU and Aidan Thompson with the Denver Pioneers. Starting with BU, I talked about this game, I believe, already over the weekend, but a chaotic way to start this tournament for the Terriers. Super high-octane game against Ohio State in the first round, where BU managed to come away with an 8-3 victory, and then over the weekend, defeating Cornell 3-2 in overtime. Goal from Quinn Hudson from the point, and who else but Mr. Ryan Greene with the primary assist. And this is what he returned to BU to do. The Blackhawks wanted to give him his ELC at the end of last year. He said, nope, I'd like to return to the Terriers to chase my goal of winning a national championship. And despite me saying I don't think they have the roster to do it this year, clearly they've been trying to prove me wrong ever since. They are now Frozen Four bound. Congratulations to Ryan Greene and BU. Super happy that this is what he came back to the Terriers for. And again, sounds like that Terriers lineage is going to be continuing strong over the next couple of seasons, as Sacha Boisvert could be taking his talents there. We know Jack Bushman officially will be a freshman there in the fall. But speaking of overtime games, how about the overtime games in general we've just been seeing in this NCAA tournament? Penn State, the Nittany Lions, continue their miraculous run through the NCAA tournament after being the 4 seed in the Allentown Regional. They knock off UConn 3-2 in overtime over the weekend to punch their ticket to the Frozen Four. Also saw Western Michigan defeat Minnesota State in their opening round game 2-1 in double overtime. Then they went on to beat UMass 2-1 to punch their ticket to the Frozen Four. UMass were the ones who kind of controversially put an end to Minnesota's season in the opening round, leading to Oliver Moore and Sam Renzel, of course, signing their entry-level contracts and making their NHL debuts over the weekend. But no overtime necessary thus far for the defending national champion Denver Pioneers and Aidan Thompson, who also have punched their ticket back to the Frozen Four as they handled Providence, Tage Harding, and John Mustard 5-1 in the opening round. And then, man, just continue to have Boston College's number in a rematch of the national championship game last year in St. Paul, where Boston College came up short to Denver. That was the storyline once again here in the second round. Denver knocks them off once again, 3-1. How about David freaking Carl going for his third national championship? Already has 2 gold medals at the World Juniors and is up for the Coach of the Year in the NCAA once again. Excuse me. Involving Blackhawks coaching candidates, I talk about how I firmly believe they need someone with good NHL experience that can take command of the locker room. It is going to be hard for them, though, not to go after David Carl with all the experience. I mean, who better to lead the kids than a guy who's familiar with a decent amount of them, coaching them at the World Juniors, a couple of them at Denver, right? And just has been around this age group and knows how to squeeze the best out of them. Man, it does feel like David Carl would be a good candidate for the next Blackhawks head coach. Just continues to stack his resume as he's going back to the Frozen Four, looking to have BU be national champions for the second consecutive year and the third time in 4 years. Would be absolutely crazy. But Denver is going to be taking on Western Michigan in the Frozen Four Thursday, April 10th at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, 4 p.m. Central Time. That leaves Ryan Greene and Boston College taking on the Penn State Nittany Lions in the Frozen Four in the late game on Thursday, April 10th at 7:30 p.m. Central Time, setting up the national championship to be on Saturday, April 12th. Should be super fun to see who's going to come away with the championship in college hockey this year. That's going to take care of today's episode of Locked On Blackhawks, though. As always, thank you all again for joining me on the show. Be sure to go and subscribe to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube. Follow Locked On Blackhawks for free wherever you may be listening to your podcast. That way, you can get the latest episode as soon as it becomes available each and every day. As always, I'm your host, Jack Bushman. Check me out on X at Jack Bushman2, and make sure to follow my Strictly Blackhawks account at Talkin' Hockey so you can get all of the latest Blackhawks news and updates. Until the next episode, everyone, enjoy the rest of your day. I'll see you next time on the Locked On Blackhawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.